Welcome to Planning Phase Syndicate. We are an X-Wing miniatures gaming group consisting of myself, Christopher Tanner, my co-host, Matt Chevelle, and my third co-host, Charles Dillman. And I'm going to say Dillman because it's actually how he pronounces his name, but it also sounds funny, kind of like a dill pickle. So this is our inaugural podcast / video cast. So we've never done one of these before as a group. So tonight, what you get to see is our first attempt, essentially, at having a conversation with you, introducing ourselves, demonstrating essentially what our podcast is going to kind of be about, some of the different variations and options. And then we're going to actually do one of our segments live on the show. Hopefully live on the show. So thank you all for tuning in to this week's episode of Planning Phase. This week's episode is episode 1. Let's start simple. And we decided not to say let's start simple stupid, because then it would just be kind of like we're ripping off of Kiss, and really let's start simple stupid is just, it doesn't really mean anything to anybody, I don't think. But essentially, just so everybody knows who's just tuning in, our show will bring you different training videos. We'll bring you how-to content, meta hot takes, but we're going to all focus all of our content on helping newer players or players who just have started the game. So if you're a veteran or an expert player, you'll probably still get some enjoyment out of our show, but our goal as a team is to actually give content and help explain it to people who have just started. And the idea behind this concept kind of came when there was a group session between the three of us one night. And we were playing X-Wing online because during the pandemic, and for those of you who are listening this 10 years down the road, the pandemic of 2020 essentially had us locked in our homes, not able to go out and play in person because of the spread of the novel coronavirus from COVID-19. And essentially we started playing online, talking online all the time. And what happened is we decided we wanted to do a podcast to kind of help people out who are newer to the game or who just take this as a hobby. Because when we first started, a lot of the podcasts and things we listened to all talked about extreme meta-analysis. What are you going to play when we get back to the tables? How do you analyze whether 10 Nub is a better B-Wing than Hera? And it goes into such extent detail. We're like, well, I don't even know how to fly a B-Wing. I've never put one on the table. So when we started this podcast, Maya and myself were actually both newer players, and we relied on Charles and some other people from his team who had been playing X-Wing since the 1.0 version to kind of help us through this transitional period. And we could thank Charles for my dislove of Torkel Mux, just so everybody knows, ahead of time. And you can laugh, guys. It's okay. You don't have to be super quiet. And so, but we wanted this podcast and this video cast, I guess, to kind of be more of a representation of our journey into X-Wing and how we can help others have the same amazing journey that we've had. So to begin with, if we want to go ahead and start with Matt, if you want to give us a little bit about yourself, how you got into X-Wing, what your loves are, your hates are, why you think Chris is a better beta player than you, all those type of things. We can go ahead right now and you can explain that.
Sure. Yeah. So, Matt Chevelle. I am from Michigan. In my 40s, we're going to go stopping right about there. Married to a lovely lady named Jackie, which hopefully we actually might get her on the cast. She plays a little bit. She was my first foray into attempting to teach somebody how to play this game, which was a lot of fun and very interesting. So really enjoyed that. We have 2 lovely fur cats. You're definitely going to see them. You probably already did for those who are eagle-eyed out there. We'll just make a game of counting the cat butts as they go by, across here. I've been playing since February. Chris here actually bought me my first 2 sets of X-Wing. We started with just a standard set to play with, and then 2 scum fire sprays, actually, because for my first So, but for my first foray in, I decided that I really loved Boba Fett, and I thought he was the coolest thing. So I was playing Boba Eamon, and just after playing that for about a month, thinking, "Oh yeah, this game seems pretty easy, and all you have to really do is just go down the field and see how quickly everybody dies." But that was the Boba Fett meta, and I realized just how much of a jerk I was shortly thereafter. But hey, whatever. It did allow me to actually put them on the table, and I was so incredibly lucky to actually win my first in-person event. But it was in the before times, but only just before times. So it was a whopping 6 people. So that is a very hollow victory. Um, I'm very interested in playing multiple different factions. Like I said, I started with Scum. And then I've got, of course, bitten by the gotta catch 'em all Pokemon style version of it. With the one exception of Separatists, I have started buying into every faction. Don't own all the ships, but I do own a very hefty number. I don't really have a favorite faction. I suppose my least favorite faction is the Separatists, but that's just because I've really not played them much. I never was a huge fan of how they had so many of them, but I want to try them out. So actually, I've been starting to think about and play some Separatist faction. Let's see here. Ace play has been something I've really been interested in, so I've been trying out Imperials. I'm really a huge fan of Echo, that kind of stuff right now. Let's see here. I'm curious about getting into the judging aspect. So Diyun kind of style, not of course him, because I don't need to be the head of any of these tournaments and the head judge or anything like that. But it would be interesting to actually do that aspect, I think, of the game. I don't like tournaments as much just because I don't personally think I have the right temperament or kind of personality for it. I am excited to play in person and excited that soon here we are going to start putting ships on the table again. So yay for vaccines. So that's me in a nutshell. If you guys, you'll learn more about me as time goes on. But other than that, I'm excited to meet you guys. So, thank you.
Awesome. Charles, how about the most veteran player of our squad?
But only by a small amount. My name is Charles Dillman. Originally from the same city in Michigan that Matt is from. Currently living in Orlando, Florida. So I am part of our squad via proxy at this point. Married with one wonderful stepchild and a dog that will inevitably make an appearance on the podcast periodically as we go. I have been playing. My first foray into X-Wing was when it released at Gen Con. Picked up the Red Letter starter. For those of you who don't know, that was the very first starter kit. Got out of the game because there weren't any expansions for it. Rejoined about the time that they dropped the Scum and Villainy faction. Interesting history lesson. The original the original Fire Spray that had Boba Fett as a pilot was part of the Empire faction because there were only 2 factions in the game, being Empire and Rebel. So got back into it at the time that the Scum and Villainy faction released and never looked back. I've been playing since 1.0. I lost my first 12 straight tournaments. I wouldn't say that I'm the best at the game by any means. As far as my favorite faction, my background probably makes that pretty clear, but I am a tried and true Scum player. I foray into CIS and the Separatist faction only because of the Fire Spray. And I play the Republic a lot with my son because he plays First Order. As far as my style, I try to fly non-meta. I try to mix it up and play ships that don't see any love, like the G1A or the droids or even the Shadowcaster periodically. That's really about it. I'm not an interesting person. I'll probably be the most boring person on this podcast, but I have a lot of knowledge to share. I'm always available for questions. Any rules that you need answered, I can find an answer for you. And really, we're all here to help everybody learn this game that we both love and hate at different times. And really just kind of build stepping stones to have you guys play a game that we love. So yeah, that's to copy Matt. That's me in a nutshell. If you want to know anything, feel free to ask. But Boba Fett is the best pilot other than Fen Rao.
Disagree, my friend. I will tell you that Boba Fett is probably the best character in almost all of Star Wars series, and I'll agree with you. on that. The Mandalorian is starting to come up on that, but I'll at least give you that Boba Fett has always had a love in my heart as well.
So the thing that I will say, and I will say this for the gentleman that's currently in our chat, who never really understood my love for Boba Fett. He went and watched Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi and came to me and basically said, I don't get it, because he has about 17 minutes of screen time total between the he has 2 lines, and the most action-packed thing he does is get launched into the Sarlacc pit by a blind Han Solo. So until the Mandalorian came out, he really didn't really have the opportunity to do anything as what I would consider to be badass, but it was the mystique and the aura that he carried around him and the whole Mandalorian backstory that I fell in love with. But yeah, that's my Boba Fett story.
Fair enough. And I think I think that's very amazing. In the aspect that Boba Fett has had such the iconic, change to Star Wars that he's not getting his own show. Spoiler alert, I guess, if you haven't seen last year's Mandalorian, but I mean we're 8 months out now, for Christ's sake. So
really we can only be held liable for spoiler alerts for so long.
Very true.
I don't think it's a spoiler. I mean, come on. The fact that the show is coming isn't a spoiler. I mean, it's coming. At this point in time, it's pretty much public knowledge. So public knowledge isn't spoiler alert. I mean, if you started talking about what was in an episode, then we're talking. But the fact that something's going to exist, I think that's good. So,
what about you, Chris? Why don't you tell us about you?
Yeah, so I'm Chris Tanner. I got into X-Wing shortly before Matt. I come from a big board gaming family per se. So when we were growing up, I grew up very family oriented. We played a lot of board games, not the same way we do now, right? Board games now do not exist back then. I mean, back then we used to play Monopoly and fight over it, and that was a big thing, right? And I learned how to play a lot of card games. I could play backgammon, I could play blackjack, I could play spades, euchre. If you want to play euchre, I love that game. And maybe someday we'll do like a online 4-person euchre tournament, because that's my favorite thing in the world, and I will 100% win. But anyway, so I grew up playing board games. When I moved out and started having kids of my own, it started settling down. When the partying had to stop, I love board games. And about 2.5 years ago, I got into this card and dice game called Star Wars Destiny, which at the time I thought was the best game in the whole wide world, and I still think it is. I tried to get Matt into that game, and Matt hated it because he doesn't understand the technicalities to this game. Well, what happened was they ended the Star Wars Destiny series, and I needed another game I could get into that had a competitive scene as well as a local friendly type scene. And I had 2 options. One was Legion, and the other was X-Wing. And I hate painting, period. So it was X-Wing. I do not like to paint ships. I don't want to paint any of the figures. If Legion had come out all painted, I would probably have bought into that, because it's a war strategy game. And it's Star Wars, so who's not to love about that? I mean, I love being able to move my little Darth Vaders around. But I'll tell you what, I sure as heck am not going to paint every one of those and then go put them on and play a 3-hour game. That's just not going to happen. So I group, which is how Matt and I met Charles through Phil and a couple other people, Phil and John, essentially. And we started playing online X-Wing during the pandemic, and that's kind of how I started into it. So that's really about it for me. I mean, I'm not the special. I like a lot of board games. I host another podcast as well that talks about science and politics. But this is kind of my fun hobby outlet, thing that we get to do. So, and who knows, maybe this will take place of the other one, because this one sometimes can be funner. But funner is not a word. I know you're going to say that, Matt. So
more fun.
Anyway,
more
so
fun
that's
funner too, I suppose.
There you go. Essentially, that's essentially me. So if we want to talk a little bit about the show, and I think that's probably important, because our goal, like I said, is to take a different take on this, right? we don't want to just give you another X-Wing podcast where we analyze the meta or what lists are good today. We want to give you opportunity to have fun playing X-Wing. So like Charles said, he forays into other factions. I'm kind of similar to Matt. I own every faction and I play almost all of them. You know, I am bigger into separatists, honestly, and swarm play than anything else. And my first love was Empire, because that's essentially the first joint faction Matt and I bought when we didn't have enough ships to put on the board. We were like, oh, here's our TIE fighters and X-Wings. Oh, we have 100 points. What do we do? You know?
Right.
And if you're so new to the game,
we actually found a used section. That's what we did. Is Chris
Yeah.
and I actually found a used set, and one it was like two different factions. It was Empire and Scum, and so I took the Scum and he took the Empire, and now we had enough to put stuff on the field.
we did, and that was the best part of that, was learning why we wanted more ships. So our goal, though, is to explain to you why you don't have to buy everything, because the dollar amount that went into my first year of X-Wing, it dwarfs the amount of money I spent on Destiny in my 1.5-year cycle with that. And I guess I won't say it dwarfs it, because if I bought everything brand new, it would have. But Matt and I have been very diligent about buying online bots, trading used stuff, quite a bit. So, you know, I won't say I spent more on that than Destiny. What's that?
Buy local, man. Local game store. Between Chris and I, we've probably saved, I don't know, at least 25% on everything we bought, because we went to our local game store, we talked to our local game store, we asked them if they can do us a special, and they have been able to do us a special. So, I mean, buy local, guys. Buy local.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah. And so that's kind of the idea behind what we were waiting for. But what we don't want is for people who want to get into the game to feel daunted by it, right? Because now I could tell you for $200, I could own Separatists enough to play almost any Separatist till the new set's released, and only play that one faction. And if that's what I found enjoyable, that's what we do. And so, like, Phil, one of the guys that started me into this whole thing, his idea is I own everything. I'm a collector. I want you to test what you want. So before we left in-person play, we were able to play a couple of different other factions amongst each other, which gave me an idea of what I really liked when I got into it. For example, I don't own a lot of Rebel. I just don't. I own some because I found a lot, but I do not own a lot because I'm not a Rebel player. I don't like the style as much. But again, here we are moving down back. What does Chris like? The idea of the show is not to talk about just what Chris likes, but what we can help you all find. So what we did,
to kind of say too, and I know that, like, so for me, and I think a lot of X-Wing players, and from what I've seen in the community too, if you happen to want to play this game, don't think of the daunting cost of what it's going to cost to get into it. Find somebody who plays, and then see what they're willing to loan you, put on the table with you, and just, you'll find a way to save quite a lot of money. If you know in-person X-Wing is what your goal is, then do find a player. Talk to your local game store. There's going to be people know people, and people know who is out there. There is a group leader. Ours is Phil. You know, there is a group leader in every community, right? Yep. So just look around and go out there. There's going to be a day where somebody's going to come in there or something like that. Because the one thing about games like X-Wing and other miniature games is if you have an interest to play it, the point is to get out there and let people know you're interested in playing it. Because most people who like to play games will be happy to teach you, will be happy to loan you what you need, and are happy to almost just get whatever you need on the table for you. One, because now they have another opponent, but then two, it's enjoyable. It really is. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just, I always want to say that because it's amazing. I mean, with COVID, that's why Chris and I probably ended up having to buy so much so soon. But without COVID, I think that we would have had much less expenditure. But even then, we'd probably still end up spending it in the end. But you know how
we have addiction problems, folks.
I think any respectable gamer does, whether it's Magic the Gathering, HeroClix, X-Wing. We all have some money sink that we spend money on. Some people have Jeeps. Some people have hot rods or race cars. Everybody has something that they enjoy. For me, Phil was probably the first place that I played in person X-Wing. Plug for the game store there in where you're at, Chris.
Out of the box.
Yep, Out of the Box Games was probably my very first in person tournament. Played with some friends, really got into it. And right now is a perfect time to get into the game, just because there's such a varied kind of community between your casual player, your high level tournament player. Because everything is happening online right now, it allows you a very large access to a very large library of players that you can reach out to via Discord or other YouTube channels and find online games. And that's kind of why we wanted to do this. We want to give people who may not have the opportunity for in-person play, or even if you have opportunity for in-person play and you want to get into the intricacies of why a certain card works the way it does, or why a certain pilot is better than another pilot. I can't necessarily tell you what makes a pilot better, but I can tell you what we play. I can tell you what the cards do and how they interact. And the purpose of this show is really just to kind of give you guys, from a starter's vantage point, from a new player's vantage point, how to play the game and really break down the different steps to leading you into the wide world that is X-Wing and tournament play and casual play and everything that comes along with it.
Another thing I
Yep.
wanted to do, because you're starting to talk about online play, which you're right. Right now, online play is amazing, and you really have a stepping stone in there. And then also right now, the newest thing from FFG and now probably AMG is that they've been releasing really great 3-ship sets,
Yep.
squad sets they call them, where these little squad sets where you would before have to buy multiple $20 sets. What you can do is you can get these squad sets, which include the 3 ships, and really you can buy a squad set and field a reasonably good squad right from the get-go. Whereas when we started, you'd have to buy that plus this to plus this, so it really they have started thinking about the new player. So
Yeah, when I first got into it, just looking at differences in cost now, you had to buy the starter box, which was at least $40, and you had to have that to get your templates, your obstacles, and your damage deck, which were the 3 required things to be able to play the game. Then, for me, because I was a Scum player, there was no box that had Scum in it. Every starter set came with Empire or Rebel. And so to then field a Scum list that was anywhere reasonable, you were probably dropping close to another $100 on just the ships that you needed to fly. Now in 2.0, like you mentioned, every faction has a 3-ship kind of starter box. You can buy secondary templates. FFG even has a set of plastic templates that you can buy separately. And there are faction specific damage decks now. So, depending on what you wanted to fly, like if we were to look at the meta, I know it's a bad word, but if we were to look at the meta right now, one of the major players in the meta is a dual fire spray list. So if you were to buy the starter box for Scum, I mean, you're going to get 2 Y-Wings and a Hawk, so those are not meta-wise a very large used ship at the moment. There will be comebacks, but for $40, well, no, wait, they're $30 each. So for $60, you could have the fire sprays that you need to run those lists, maybe another $15 for a set of templates and $10 for a set of the damage deck, and you're
$5.
able to. Is it 5 for the damage deck? Wow, I didn't realize it
And
was that cheap.
also
So
hit up
$5
somebody
for
who
the damage deck.
plays for
Yep,
the
absolutely.
rulers.
Absolutely. Everybody's got an extra set of the cardboard rulers. That's how I got Javier into the game. But, looking at that, it's just one of those things where for less than $100, you can have a tournament viable list. Calling out to someone that I saw on Facebook this weekend, he and his daughter purchased a lot from one of their local guys that was getting out of the game. They probably played 2 or 3 games together and found out that one of their local game stores was having a tournament, and they decided last minute to go to the tournament, play some in-person X-Wing. His daughter went 2-2 and finished 7th, and he went 3-1 and finished first place in their very first tournament. And they've been playing the game for like 2 weeks. So there is a learning curve to the interactions between the upgrades and the pilots. I'm not going to say that there's not, but again, that's why we're here. to help break down those interactions and help you understand the pieces in between, the links in between the different cards and how everything interacts. That's really what we want to be here to do.
So let's go through a few of our segments. How about that? Let's do that. Because I think that's important. And then we're actually going to run one of our segments tonight, I believe. We're correct, Matt. We're going to run one of the segments.
Oh yeah, for sure. We're
Okay.
definitely gonna do one of our. I think is one of our more fun segments. So we'll let you introduce them and we'll figure it out.
Yep. So essentially, every week you can expect from us an introduction where we will talk about what we're going to talk about for the week. We're going to kind of highlight different things that we found interesting in X-Wing this week, as well as maybe we might BS a little bit about our personal life. So, for example, I'm very burnt because I was outside on Saturday from 10:30 to about 5:30 p.m. So I'm pretty red. Should have put suns and lotion on or whatever they call it. It's that sun. I know it's not called suntan lotion because you don't put it on when you want to prevent it. There you go, sunscreen. And I got a lecture, quite a big lecture about it because of that. But either which way, first of the year, I always get that. We're also going to always end the show with what did we learn today about X-Wing, or what did we find different. What we found is when the three of us get together, we almost always learn something new from each other. Sometimes it's the fact that Torkel Mux went from I hate him this much to how much I hate him up here. Though Charles and I played a game last night and he only won by 3 points with his Torkel Mux. So,
whether it's an inch or a mile, a victory is still a victory, sir. Don't be
Just
salty.
saying.
Don't be salty on air just because I beat you.
Wow. You feel
There's no saltiness. I just hate
how much you hated him. Oh, come on.
Charles goes, you're gonna hate this list.
I think that you started. I think you like took the cap off. Like losing that cap. And you're like, okay, here it comes. We'll wait for it. Come on, man. You can't.
Oh, bro.
On the Oracle.
No. I dropped a Mento in the 2-liter bottle and then put the cap back on it. That's what I did. I waited for that to explode. Absolutely did.
Yeah.
All right. The segment that we'll probably do on almost every show is Academy 101. And that segment essentially is meant to give you an example of, different rules that you may not know about, rules you may know about. And again, like I said, our goal is to try and teach something every episode. So if you're a veteran or an expert player, you can fast forward typically 10 to 15 minutes in that segment, or you can listen to it and correct us on all of the mistakes you think we're making. And you can post all that stuff right in the chat, and we'll happily start addressing it. And we'll get into our Patreon later, and talk about that as well. But the big thing is we wanted to always do an Academy 101 because there's things that I learn on we'll call it a weekly basis because I don't play X-Wing every day, but on a weekly basis that has actually helped me further my play style and further what I do. And one of those, again, for example, is understanding Torkel Mux and how when he moves you to 0 initiative, if everybody gangs up on one of your ships that you don't want them to, it's gone. You lose that ship. And you just might as well say, thanks for taking the one ship off the board. So those are the type of things we want to help people through. We're also going to look at essentially mechanics, right? We're going to have a mechanics section where we analyze different types of mechanics, how we place rocks, bumping. Matt mentioned ace play earlier. Those type of things that will help us kind of go through, these are different play styles, and these are the components that make up that. So if you look at what I play 90% of the time, it's usually swarms. I don't usually play much less than 4 ships almost ever. I will say I do like ace play as well. And I do find it enjoyable. For example, a 666 list, which just happens to be my favorite combination of numbers, to be able to play Sienna, Sincere Fell, Charles' favorite pilot, and Vader all in one list and with tools, and it's insane right now.
Yeah, it is.
But it's really fun. In my opinion, I find it fun to play, and it's kind of something that that's the type of thing I go out of the way with. And another example is we could talk about mechanics, because when I played in my last tournament, I didn't quite understand all of the mechanics that went into like a Garvin and Hera A-Wing and X-Wing combination, to the point where it created this infinite loop of focus tokens. And those are the type of mechanics we want to cover with people. We also will obviously have like a roll call list where we spotlight lesser known cards, lesser known ships, things that are we just find fun to play. And again, for example, one of those is going to be one of the ones that we have on there will be Hera, because Hera is actually really fun to fly no matter which way you look at it. And it's not just because she's good, but she actually is enjoyable to fly. But for example, sensitive to controls is an upgrade that you could put on, an interceptor, or what's the silencer. I think you put them on interceptors and silencer. And it just kind of changes the order of operation on how you do different moves and linked actions. And so it's fun. It's just something cool. So we're going to create what's called a roll call spotlight segment. And I don't know, maybe we'll come up with a cool scum nickname for it. We'll see. We will also be doing, breakdown of list analysis on and off. We might have an opinion segment where we bring different guests on for opinions or hot takes that they like. We also will have what's called a segment called "What Churns Your Dial," and that's the segment where we get to rant. So the first one we get to do, I think, is me, right? I think that I'm the first one.
Definitely.
You've already alluded to the topic because it's going to be you talking about your hatred for the HWK pilot Torkel Mugs.
Yeah, and I was going to say also the other problem will be getting him not to do it, I think, sometimes.
Don't worry, guys. We'll try and keep him reined in as much as we possibly can.
Yep. But we wanted to do that because we all have different quirks. And so, for example, typically the things I hate the most, and Matt will attest to this, and Matt's kind of, let's be honest, Matt's pretty similar in his hatred aspects. We both get very angry very fast at certain weird mechanics when we don't understand how it works, and we feel like we had a gotcha moment. Somebody pulled a gotcha moment, which is fine, right? People do that just to kind of josh with us. Now Matt and I do it once in a while with each other just because it's funny. And we don't, when we played in person, you can't throw the ship across the table. But when you play online, I can flip that table pretty bloody easily. So, but we wanted to do that because I think it gives us an opportunity to vent about what we don't like about it, and gives other players that may play that ship or that card an opportunity to actually have a conversation about why that card is still good to some extent. And why other people should probably be interested in playing it. Because it is, so, like, again, Torkel Mux, fairness, is fun to play if you're playing him. Right. He is.
Sure.
He's just not much fun when you're on the opposite side of the table.
No, the other side of the table, Torkel Mux, is not fun. But the ship itself doesn't have a whole lot of defense, so it does go down pretty quick when you target it and focus fire it down. Another segment that we're going to be doing, we call it constructing the Death Star. One person is going to take the reins of a list builder, while the other two members of the crew will be shouting out different pilots and ships, trying to build a list out of insanity. And then every couple of weeks, not only will we be here for commentary, we'll also be here to play some games here and there as well. So we're going to take the lists that we build in the Construct a Death Star segment, and we're actually going to field them, whether it be Matt and Chris in person on a table, myself with one of them via Tabletop Simulator on the internet, or however we're able to do it if we're traveling. But we're going to try and field those lists just to make sure that we are also able to enjoy the game that we're teaching you guys, and you have the opportunity to watch what we're doing and ask questions on what we're doing and our thought processes and why we do certain maneuvers or why we use certain upgrades and everything there as well.
Yeah. The idea behind that too is those are not going to be competitive lists, right? They are just for fun lists. They're just us going, hey, this is what we really find fun, and we each get to put a little bit of ourselves into it. So,
but to be fair, you never know. You might stumble upon a combo that we didn't previously know, and maybe we build a tournament viable list out of the rubble of insanity that is that segment.
Well, yeah, and the one thing I do want to emphasize here, and this is kind of like the point of this, like, just harkens back to what we do, right? Mm-hmm. Academy 101, roll call, what turns your dials, just spotlighting obscure mechanics, showing off certain lesser used cards, talking about different rules, building these lists, putting these lists out there. Uh, it's all about how to kind of construct. You're going to watch real time construction of lists. You're going to watch these games, which are only intended to be fun. I mean, obviously, yeah, we may, who cares? Who knows? We may stumble on the next massive meta, but that's not the point of them. The point of them is to see in real time, basically, a list being built, even when it's less than ideal circumstances, and then to try to have fun with it, right? So it really is kind of the culmination of what we intend to do here, guys, right? It is from start to finish, all the way from how to play the game, all the way up to putting the pieces on the board, and hopefully making you guys smile and having some fun, because that's really what this is really intended to be. This is not let's talk about the next meta. Let's get that net list. Let's try to make it even better, and then let's have this crazy tournament and see who's the best, and shout at each other. That's not what this is being.
Yep.
But now, to be fair, there might be some shouting at each other, but that just depends on what mood we're in from evening to evening.
Hopefully not. A couple other real quick segment that we have is we all, in combination with what turns your dials, we're going to do what excites you, and it's basically the exact opposite of what do you like. And again, for example, Charles loves boba. There you go. So there will be probably a good segment on that. And it'll kind of complement the anger of it. And then you can sit there and say, well, for me, it's like why I like swarms and what do people not like about playing against swarms and that type of thing. We also are going to do something called Rebel Hangar Cadets, where we look at list building in a different light, where one of us will bring a list, or at some point, if somebody else would like to submit lists, and then we tweak them and say, well, this is what we would play with them. The idea is not going to be to keep the original list, but to kind of tweak it to be something that you could put on your table at a local event or a local get together, or if you have online in-person type thing that you want to play. And then we will also have a segment called System Malfunctions, where we get to discuss weird interactions, things people should probably be aware of. And Charles has a good one, and I'm not gonna let Charles give it away because that can be part of one of the segments. But there's a weird interaction that people probably really should know about. All right. So I don't know, fellas. I think that covers all our segments, does it? Oh, we're going to do a segment where we talk about 1.0 ships that have not been released. I completely forgot about that. We are going to do that because those of us like me who've never played 1.0 know some of those ships, though, basically from learning about them. And Charles has a really good insight into ships that probably should be coming to 2.0 that just have not yet for whatever reason.
Well, to be fair, and being realistic, they exist in 2.0 just because in the transition kits from 1.0 to 2.0, we did get pilots for our existing ships. But there are a handful of ships, and I will say that the majority of them are in the faction that is near and dear to my heart, which is the Scum faction. We lost a lot of really fun ships that didn't really see a lot of play in 1.0, and we were hopefully going to see an uptick in 2.0, and we really haven't seen that. So I'm really looking forward to deep diving into those articles as well.
Awesome. So let's go on to our segment. And so what guys, what did we decide on the segment that we were going to do for episode 1?
Why don't we throw out a construct the Death Star? We'll go ahead and build a list, let them see the insanity that ensues, and see what we can do there.
And since you were the first one to shout it out there, Charles, congratulations. You are in the hot seat, sir.
Fine with me. What faction am I running, guys?
No. What faction are you running, sir? Not
No, because I was going to say, you know what I'm going to pick, so why don't you guys pick?
Not Scum. Scum veto, but I think you should pick your faction.
Anything but Scum.
Yep.
I could do I have to put the Jeopardy music on? Or will we get it ticked for that? I think we get ticked if I put Jeopardy music on.
That. Not to mention the fact we should each get a veto as well. So if you pick one that Chris doesn't want you to choose, then we can veto too. So
let's see here. Why don't we go? You know what? I don't fly it very often, so let's go. No, let's go Republic. Let's see what we can build with Republic. What's my first ship, guys? Or my first pilot?
Oh boy. What do you want to do, Chris? Why don't you dish him something?
All right, so if we're talking Republic, Republic for me is a couple of A wings are obviously your meta staple, right? You have your
Not
resistance
Rebel,
pod.
No.
Huh?
Republic.
Republic. Old Republic.
Jedi's.
Oh.
And clones.
Jedi.
All right, sorry, picked the wrong one.
I was
I
like, when did
guess
we
I
get
can't hear you.
A-wings?
Healthy space
I've
source.
not been doing the thing.
So Space Force. All right, so okay, in Republic because I'm super smart, I guess. That's why we have a podcast to teach Chris how to play
Oh, good.
X-wing.
You're not worried about it, man.
So there's a lot of different ships that you could pick. You have your LAT gunship, you have your Naboo starfighter, you have your Nimbus class V-wing, you have a Torrent, you have your Atis Atticus, your Delta S, I don't know how to say, Aether Sprite, you have a Y-wing, and you have a Arc 170. And I'm going to say is I'm going to avoid the Y-wing because Charles knows that that's something Charles will know. So if we want to break Charles out, to me, the LAT gunship is one of the most iconic things that I would put in. I would 100% definitely be putting this in there. Now, if I want to go on a, they have all these different opportunities, things that you can play, right? So, for example, if you play Hound, a friendly ship in your rotating arc gains a deplete or strain token. If you have no tokens of that type, you may transfer that token to yourself. I have not found Hound to be very useful. Warthog is the meta staple. Everybody likes him because he allows non-limited ships at 0 to range 2 destroyed during engagement to not be removed until end phase. So essentially your initiative no longer matters. That is a lot of fun to fly. But I'm going to give you Hawk. And I'm going to say this because if we're going to play something that's fun, and you can, Matt will test this because the first one I put on the table was Hawk. Yep. And what Hawk says is at the start of engagement, or I'm sorry, at the start of end phase, each friendly ship at range 0 to 1 that has a revealed maneuver of 3 to 5 may gain 1 strain token to perform a barrel roll or a boost action. So this is after everything has happened. You're still alive by some crazy mainstay. You now have a Hawk. You now have the ability to take a red token, which only has to be cleared by a blue token. And the really nice thing about Republic here is the fact that you get to get rid of red tokens like crazy with blue maneuvers because they have so many of them. A lot of the ships on there strive on blue maneuvers, and you don't get that in every faction, especially Scum. Scum I have a lot of that, actually.
No,
Another
you're
thing
true.
too with the LAT. The great thing about the LAT, it is one of the 2 medium-based ships of the Republic, actually. And the thing about the LAT is it's basically a backbone of your list building. It is very, very support oriented. It is a rotating arc with 2 dice attack, which is abysmal. Let's be fair, right? So it is there to support its brethren. So if you're going to start with something on the Republic side, a LAT is not a bad way to start.
All right, who wants the next ship? Matt, you want to take the next ship, or do you want to
I was hoping
outfit
to
this
fit
ship?
it out a little bit. So what are you going to put on the Hound there? You have no idea, or do you want to have a start on him?
So I think with Hawk, he is designed. I would like to now. Obviously, what we do with this is going to be up to you guys, but I'd love to see him run with a group of N1s. Just because the N1s get the bonus for doing the 3 to 5, where they get the free evade. So they push really, really hard to do those 3 to 5 maneuvers. That they get the benefit from Hawk. So if we're going to be doing something like that, I think that. Let's see here.
You don't have to put anything on Hawk. I just figured if there was something that you thought of right away that you would like to strap on and go for it. If not, I'll throw something out for you.
That might be interesting, and I've never used it, so why don't we throw a crew on there and we'll give him Kit Fisto. Kit Fisto, we all know, is a Jedi. At the start of the engagement phase, you can choose a friendly ship at range 0-1. and spend a force. If you do, that ship can perform a red evade action. Might be beneficial depending on what ships we pair with him, because if there is a ship that doesn't have an evade on its action bar, giving it the ability to take an evade token for a stress is really, really, really solid. And I think it pairs well with being able to do a boost or barrel roll at the end of the round, should you need to do so.
One of the ships it won't do so well with, though, is an N1. So most of the time, they get their free evade action. So
Yeah, they get a free evade, but I mean, again, it is a choice, so it is a may. It's not something that you have to do. But if you get an N1 that you did a 3 that you didn't fully complete, they don't get that. They don't get their free evade token. So being able to have a backup to give them a red evade just to try and keep them, because they're fragile, but just to try and keep them alive a little bit longer. So I would like to try it out there and see what we can do.
is that
What
a
do you think,
force
Chris?
activation or an action?
It's a spend a force, and then
Gotcha.
if you do, that ship may perform a red action. So as long as
Gotcha.
that ship isn't stressed, it can stress to perform an action.
Well, honestly, I would like to see that particular card. I've never thought of it being used, so I'm wanting to add an Aether Sprite to that because they normally are only allowed a force evade. Which, if you guys don't know, what it means is you have to spend one of your force, or it's a purple evade. You have to spend force from the ship in order to actually perform that action.
So who are you putting in that Aether Sprite?
Good question. Part of me wants to be mean, but then part of me wants to also like be really awesome and give you like Obi, because Obi in an Aether Sprite's pretty much the bomb. Oh,
Let's throw Obi on there for a second.
sure. Go with Obi. That right there is a great ship to have.
If I'm going to add another pilot, I want to throw another Aether Sprite on there, and I think that I want to try Ahsoka Tano. When I look at her, I've never really flown her in the Aether Sprite, but after she fully executes a maneuver, she can choose a ship at range 0-1 and spend one of her force for that ship to be able to perform an action even if it is stressed. So it allows you to do that red boost, that red barrel roll at the end phase with Hawk, and still be able to assign an action should you need to do so with that Jedi.
All right. And I guess if we're going to go down this route, let's see if we even have any more points left for. We do. You can run a Bravo. Technically, most people run Rickolay, but if you could run, if you want to run everything naked, you can run a Rickolay. But that's going to put everything in a naked thing. So I would probably drop back down to Anakin, which then leaves you room if you want to put configs. It allows you enough room to put configs on here. If you want to go with the base, that base thing. And here's the other thing. You don't have an evade action on here. The only way they get an evade action actually is with full throttle. So Kit allows them to double focus no matter what, at least one ship. So like Charles was saying, if you didn't do that, the only thing I worry about is dropping down to Bravo fighter is you don't get much in the way of him, and he's an I2.
All right. So the other thing that we want to make sure to highlight here, guys, and it's very, very important. So this is one of those rules things that we're going to start talking about. You're talking about the N1 Bravo flight officer, Naboo N1. So its action is after you fully execute a 3 to 5 maneuver, you may perform an evade action. So basically, you get a free action there, and it's an evade action. The problem being, you cannot use a red evade action at the same time. So you can't do the double evade. So that's one of those things where Charles said, yeah, if you stop short, you can. But that's one of those things just to keep an eye on. So rules, real quick check, is if you do happen to field this list on your own, you cannot grab 2 evades, but you can grab the 1. And then Kit Fisto can help one of the Jedis not have to use the Force.
So my thing, and I appreciate giving Anakin, I like the pre-maneuver barrel roll that he can do. But looking at the list itself, if we're really breaking it down, That gives with Kit Fisto on the Hawk, Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Delta, Ahsoka Tano in the Delta, and putting Anakin in the Naboo. It gives me a wonderful 4 points to be spent on upgrades. So that gives me the option of putting CLT on either Ahsoka or Obi. So I honestly think that dropping down to the Bravo Flight Officer to get an extra 8 points available to make sure that you have, CLT on both of your Jedis may be a better play. But that's just, my hot take on it, if you will.
Charles, you also have room too if you want to go with Danae Elberger. Danae Elberger is actually, though it's not used very often, it's a nice little pilot. It's while you defend or attack, the speed of your revealed maneuver is the same as the enemy ship's. That ship's dice cannot be modified. So that can be nice because it is often that you're going to be, getting, not often necessarily, but you will have the same maneuvers. You do have room to do both a CLT on Ahsoka and on Obi, and you can still run the name Danae because otherwise you're not really going to have tons of points that you're going to throw extra upgrades onto this Bravo flight. So it might be worth a thought.
Sure. The other option is that we just run the Aether Sprites in their natural habitat with no CLT whatsoever. And Chris kind of spoke to this earlier, and run Ricole in that N1 that allows you to get the additional attack die and the additional defense die as long as you're moving faster than your opponent. And with Hawk rewarding you for doing 3 to 5s, it encourages you to run Rick. So to be fair, for simplicity's sake, if we're using this as our very first list for, new people beginning to play the game and kind of run into this, I think running just ships with as few upgrades as possible allows you to really get a feel for the flight style of the ships and gives you a good feeling of getting used to just, piloting the pilot abilities, which with the list that we're building here are complicated in and of themselves. So I would put my stamp of approval on Obi, Ahsoka, Ricole, all just the ship, and then running Hawk in the lat with Kit Fisto.
All right.
There you go, guys. So that's your list rundown. Our very first building of the Death Star going to be those 4 ships. Interesting setup.
If you guys think of anything different, please let us know in the chat. If there's anything that you would run different, we're always open for suggestion. But in a couple of weeks, you will probably see me field this on one of our streamed games against either Matt or Chris or one of our other compatriots to see what we can do there.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
Oh.
Very interesting.
Well, gentlemen, we are at 52 minutes officially. So for our first podcast, I think that's a pretty good time frame. Just kind of as we leave the episode, and I want to spend just a few minutes talking about formats and where you could find us. So what we're doing is as we're working through these beginning episodes, we're working towards finding our niche on what day. We aren't going to commit to going live specifically right away, but our goal is essentially to be able to go live for all recordings during the day and then editing them in post during the week. So we're going to pick a day. Typically, we'll probably be going live either on Sundays or on Wednesdays, depending on everybody's schedule. And we're working towards building 5 to 6 episodes that we can start getting our iTunes and Google Play certifications going. So it takes a little bit of content to get those going, but that's kind of our goal. So if you enjoy what you heard, if you want to make suggestions, you're welcome to reach out to us. We have a Twitter, we have a Facebook page, and we have a Discord that we have just started that essentially we will be signing up roles for. What I also wanted to mention real quick too is we are going to create a Patreon for people to participate in. And I know first show everybody's like, why are you telling us about your Patreon? You really expect us to give you some money, blah, blah. No, we don't. We don't expect you to give us any money right away. But our goal is as we create content is we have to be able to sustain some of the costs of this, right? And we're not going to do this, make you join us or do anything like that for no money, right? We're going to give some different things away. And so what I want to do is I'm going to show real quick because I can do that because I guess I know how to do these things. what I'm going to do is we're going to show real quick our different tiers. So if you would like to be more participative in our Discord, for $3 a month, we can give you a Patreon role in our Discord. We will have a monthly Patreon only show where basically you'll be able to come on and interact with us specifically. We will also have a Discord for questions that we will be answering in our monthly only show. You can join our Crymora Syndicate tier instead of the Hut tier if you would like a small quarterly gift. And we have partnered with our fellows at the Design Theory, and they are getting us some wonderful different gifts that we will be able to give out quarterly. So essentially, we're going to be doing small quarterly gifts and medium quarterly gifts, depending on which tier you join. You'll also get all the previous tier, options such as a Patreon role, the monthly only show, and the Discord. But we will also be giving out a quarterly small gift that we'll determine at the beginning of the first month every quarter. If you want to join our Pike Syndicate tier, which is probably my favorite tier, and that's maybe only because I've been watching the Clone Wars again with my son. But if you want to join the Pike Syndicate tier, we're going to allow and open up the thing to have a medium gift and the small gift. So you will not just be getting a small couple of tokens, you'll also be getting some sort of a medium gift. So there's an example of some small tokens. There's some Vader stress tokens that our folks over at the Design Theory have created for us. And what we will also be doing is giving out a medium tier gift, which we will be determining. So there's another example. We could have specialized dial covers that we could be giving out. You won't just get one, you'll get a set of them, depending on the monthly patrons we have. And one random person, or I'm sorry, that's the next tier. I'm getting ahead. Charles, you should yell at me when I get ahead of myself. The next tier is all the same thing, except for what we're going to do is give a bonus gift, which will be a random person is going to help pick what the lower tier gifts are. They're going to help talk us through. So they're going to have a private meeting with the three of us to meet and have a conversation about what they feel they would like to see. That way, it's not just us dictating, here you go, this looks cool, right? Maybe you got an idea. I don't know. I mean, I don't really have a lot of ideas. So, I like Baby Yoda things or Grogu.
Who their favorite pilot is, buddy.
Yeah.
Maybe they've always wanted Echo and whatever. We can get them an Echo dial cover. I mean, yeah,
maybe
we don't
they suggest a Torkel Mux dial cover.
Exactly. Who could live without a Torkel Mux? I mean, and then
I do have one of those shit.
There could be on the field against Chris. Like, think of how much you could ruin Chris's day if every time he went to play, there was Torkel on the other side. I mean, like, the possibilities are endless.
Yep. So essentially, that's going to be our highest tier. We went ahead and created a Crimson Dawn tier, but essentially, we're working towards building exclusive gifts. But we're not there yet, folks. So please be patient with us. If you do subscribe to that, we will message you personally and talk through what do you expect to see, different things like that. Essentially, we are going to be working on an exclusive gift that will essentially become part of a massive thing. Like if you subscribe for this for 3 or 4 months, you're going to get a set of something. So that's in the works, but we're not there yet. So we threw that out there to see if there is any interest. If there is, we will be personally reaching out to you on Patreon, and I will 100% be scheduling a meeting to have a conversation with everybody. And if we get 700 people that somehow subscribe to that, I guess Chris's day becomes I take a couple weeks off of work and have conversations every day with people. So I guess that's what my vacation is. Don't tell my wife; she will not be happy.
Busy boys. That's what happens then.
Anyway, so the idea with our Patreon, just so y'all know, is there's no money going into any of our pockets. This is not what we do for a living. We all have individual jobs. Our goal is to do nothing but recreate content for everybody out there that they can use to help new players learn and become part of the X-Wing family. And if you really like us and you want to become part of the Planning Phase Syndicate family, like I said, you can join our Discord. You can go ahead and join our YouTube and subscribe. And if you hit the little bell, it gives you a notification whenever we go live. We are working towards going live on Twitch and on YouTube all at the same time. We don't have the ability to do that quite yet, but we're working towards moving towards that within the next couple of months. And we also, you can follow us on Twitter and on Facebook if you like those different formats of social media. But our goal is to probably be the most active inside of our Discord, because that allows freedom that we don't get with some of the social media platforms. So with that being said, let's go into in phase team, and
real
let's
quick too. I want to make a quick note too. Sorry, Chris. We do need to make sure that we are also looking forward to, and first of all, I appreciate anybody who does decide to go and become a Patreon. Thank you in advance, and thank you so much for helping us get all this content out to you. And secondly, we are going to be starting to look for people to actually do the building the Death Star, for instance. There's literally 3 of us. So how we're going to fill this is going to become a community issue as well. So please do understand that there is going to, of course, be a little bit of favoritism towards those Patreons. Not that there's the only people, but if you really want to get on, you really want to build the list with us, you really want to do a trench run with us, please reach out, let us know anyway. And hey, if you happen to be a Patreon, we'll look there first. So, sorry.
Well, I don't know what trench run is, but I'll look forward to whatever that segment becomes. Anyway,
sorry, super secret trench run.
Thank you. As we end the show tonight, we've had a good time. Our goal is to keep this to an hour and a half at the most, in an effort to conserve people's time. So you will also be seeing in the future from us gameplay demos and different things on our YouTube. So our YouTube, our Discord, and our Twitch will be our main communication avenues. And our goal is to build up the YouTube with different playtest videos. So I believe in segment or episode 2, we're going to do another Construct the Death Star. Let me check my notes here, because I'm pretty sure I built those notes. Because I'm smart like that. So we're going to do another Construct the Death Star, and we're going to have either Matt or myself work with Charles to build that. And then what we're going to be doing is we're going to go ahead and pick a night, and we're going to fly those on TTS. It probably will not be in person to begin with. It'll all be on TTS. That way we don't have to, we can make sure everything's accessible to every member in our group. And what that's going to mean is that you're going to get to see the list that you saw built there, played on stream to some avail. And hopefully somebody will commentate with the other person so it doesn't have one person echo chamber. Anyway, enough of the crazy laughs. Thank you all for joining us tonight. We've had an amazing night. We will be back with another episode of Planning Phase Syndicate right here, right now, for you. Come join our syndicate and fly with us together. Have a good night, everyone.
Take it easy, guys.